attendance, if you could please mute them to avoid feedback. And remote participants, if you could keep the camera and microphone off unless you wish to speak, just as this can affect the quality of the meeting. And it is being live webcast and recorded from the council website. So I would like to welcome you everyone to this evening's hybrid Sheppey Councillors and Residents Forum, including anyone attending remotely. We have the following Swale Borough Council officers in attendance: the Chief Executive Larissa Reid, Policy and Engagement Officer Janet Dart, Communications Marketing Officer at the back, Rebecca Dart. We also have Robert Veal, sorry, from Assistant Director for Education from Kent County Council, and Gary Radcliffe, who's the new chair appointed for Sheppey's Pride in Place Neighbourhood Board. And we also have Councillor Maxwell Harrison from KCC for Sheppey. And can I have any hands up and introductions of any parish or town councillors? Loads. Okay, starting at the front, if we'd like to introduce ourselves.
Swale Borough and Minster Parish and Sheppey Town Council.
Swale Borough Council and Quinton Town Council.
John Minster Parish Council. Tom Mundy, Minster Parish Council and Swale Borough Council.
Yeah,
my wife is Swale Borough Council.
Remy Noe, Queenborough Town Council. Cara Noe, Swale Borough Council and Leitham Parish Council. Susanna Constant, Walton Parish Council.
Ken Bickford, Leitham Parish Council. Louise Switters, Leitham Parish Council.
Sarah Paul, Clark for East Church Parish Council and our opponent Labour. So,
Nancy Rogers, East Church Parish Council. Wendy Benson, East Church Parish Council.
The Mike Brown, East Church Parish Council.
Jackie Cotswell, Queen Town Council, Sue Simpson, Queen Town Council.
Just the lady in front of you there.
Chris Reed, Shinnes Town Council.
And right at the back there.
Jeff Francis, Walton, Leitham Parish Council.
That's okay. Yep.
If you haven't signed in on your way out, can you make sure you sign in so I've got an accurate record, please? Thank you.
Right. If you would like to speak on any item, if you could please raise your hand, and we'll invite you to speak as and when it's appropriate. And the same online. If anyone would like to speak, if you raise your hand online, and we will bring you in at that point. Okay, so last year we had a review of the old area committees which took place, and one of the recommendations agreed for certain items, members of the public and parish and town councils will have the ability to vote, express and indicate a preference. It will be agreed by the chair in advance which items this will apply and be made clear on the agenda. Also, as items are discussed during the meeting, as chair, I may decide it is appropriate to hold a public vote, and as chair, I will explain the potential outcomes of the vote before a vote is taken. For examples, agree that the chair will write to an organisation on behalf of the Council and Residents Forum, make a recommendation to Swale Borough Council, Service Committee. Procedurally, this will have to follow by a councillor vote to make the recommendation to the chair of the service committee. Suggest a topic to take to other councillor residents forums, and propose a future item. So there's the first item on the agenda is the emergency evacuation procedure, and there is no scheduled test of the fire alarm this evening. So if the alarm does sound, if you could please exit, there's a fire door behind you and to the right and left. And do not re-enter the building until we are told it is safe to do so. Is there anyone that would have any special requirements in leaving the building, any help that we need to be aware of. Okay, apologies for absence, Janet.
I've received apologies from councillor Andy Booth. I can't see councillor Elliot James or councillor Pete Neal in the room. I don't know if anybody knows if
Yes,
there's.
councillor Jones is working.
Is working, apologies, thank you. And councillor Mark Tucker is online. Thank you.
Right, do members agree the minutes from the meeting held on the 3rd of February 26, minute numbers 686 to 697 are a correct record? Right, is there any declarations of interest on the agenda this evening? I will say personally that I have a child affected by the education on the island, so just for everyone's awareness. Yeah, but you're not council. I'm sorry. Okay, right, so agenda item 5, we have an update from KCC about the education provision on the Isle of Sheppey. So I would like to introduce Robert Veal, the Assistant Director for Education at KCC, to talk about this subject. Also, Councillor Worcester is about somewhere. I think you're leading on this as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll stand up because there's quite a few people at the back. You can see me. Hopefully you can see me online as well. Thank you so much. My name, as been introduced, is Rob, and I'm one of the Assistant Directors for Education in Kent. So the structure is there are 4 Assistant Directors for Education, and we all look after 3 districts each. And of course, my districts are Swale, where we are at the moment, especially the Isle of Sheppey. I look after Canterbury and I look after Thanet. So Assistant Director of Education's role is incredibly broad, but it does focus around pupil-based planning. And I know there's been a lot of turbulence, settling down. There's been an awfully big shift in terms of education on the island. So, before I ask any questions, I just want to give a brief update about what council have been doing in respect to education on the island. I cannot answer any specific questions about specific children, pupils, that wouldn't be appropriate. I will stay to the end of the meeting, so if you do want to catch me at the end, you're more than welcome to. I won't be able to give any answers on specific children, cases, schools, teachers, complaints, anything like that. But what I do promise to do, obviously, I'll take your contact details and I will endeavour to find a KCC officer who will get back to me. I think that's probably the fairest thing to say. So, you will have lived this story ad infinitum, but we know when we're specifically thinking about secondary school education on the island, we had the huge Oasis secondary school, which was failing pupils. There's no 2 ways around that. Ofsted absolutely clarified that and placed the school in special measures because it was inadequate. And therefore, the Department for Education took the notice of that, and they had to do something. This is slightly before my time, as Mike will know. However, there was a real school of thought with my predecessor, Marisa White, that actually what the island does need is 2 smaller schools. So the council can't open any new schools, can't maintain schools. So those schools have to be an academy, a little bit like Oasis was a large multi-academy trust. And you know that 2 academy trusts came forward. We have Lee Academy Minster, or part of the Lee Academy Trust, and we have East Kent College Secondary, part again of the school's trust. At that time of Oasis, the planned admission number for the Isle of Sheppey for secondary school was 390 pupils. However, both chief executives of the individual trusts, the Academy and East Kent Schools Trust, felt that actually having opening 2 slightly smaller schools would enable them to settle, get much higher quality education on the island. And I think at that point, KCC, Kent County Council, were very reluctant to agree that, and we made our feelings quite clear to the Department for Education. However, as part of the onboarding of new trusts, we know that the PAN reduced to 330, I should say. So immediately it took out 60 school places. And I think not this September, previous September, obviously the implications of that was quite tricky, to say the least. Please don't shoot me. In order that we move things forward, KCC are in negotiations with both academy trusts to permanently expand their schools. And the current thinking at the moment is that we would like Lee Academy Minster to expand by 2 forms of entry. So that is an additional 60 pupils. And we are hoping that East Kent College also expand by 1 form of entry. So that's 30 pupils. Obviously, all of these things take a long time in terms of aspects around the democratic process, talking to trust, talking to DFE, ensuring that the money is there and so on. And therefore, I think it's really important that I say this won't be ready for September 27. So we're aiming for September 28, because you can't build 2 forms of entry overnight, because it's a huge investment and it's a huge infrastructure program. However, we know that for September 2027, there's real pupil place pressures in the Swain area. And if you look at our Kent commissioning plan, which is available on the website, we are looking that we are going to need an extra 5 forms of entry, pupil secondary school places, of which probably about 3 or 4 forms of entry are pupils on the island. So what we have been doing is speaking with all of the leaders, all of the secondary schools, and we have been involving the Department for Education. Their officers have come down. We've expressed the situation to school leaders, and we are following up on regular meetings in terms of them coming forward as individual schools to say how they can support it, either by offering bulge classes, etc., etc. Now, it's really important to say that KCC has pretty much all of the responsibility for pupil place planning and not many levers. So, for example, when we're talking about going out to multi-academy trusts, we can ask them to permanently expand. We can ask them to have a bulge class. They don't have to say yes. It's a really, really tricky situation a council, not just them, any council faces. So, whereby that is an issue for our pupil place planning strategy, we will have to negotiate and lean on the DFE officers also to intercede and so on. Each school has what's called a net capacity assessment, and that is run by the Department for Education. So essentially it says this building can educate so many pupils. And then we look at the planned admission number and we see if reasonably more children can fit into a school building. In the cases that they can't, that's when we enter into conversations around permanent expansion, so providing new teaching spaces, science labs, all of those kind of things, and that will come out of what's called our basic need funding. So again, we have mechanisms. We recognise that it is certainly going to be a tricky time for 2027. I'm looking, the Department for Education are looking for all leaders, and this includes in the town, so Westlands, Alston, Sittingbourne School, all to come forward to support by offering bulge classes. I want to reflect, I think we were talking about some positives for the island, because I think that's really, really important. So we've got 2 successful schools now. We've also got Snowfields Academy, which can educate up to 60 pupils. I think we're about 40, 45 pupils at the moment with educational healthcare plans, communication and interaction. We've also got, and is filling out really successfully, a brand new SEMH school, so Nor Academy, so social, emotional, and mental health, 120 pupils. We're looking at developing a 40-place specialist resource provision at Richmond Primary, so that will accommodate 40 additional pupils, primary school children with EHCPs and so on. And I'm currently leading on what's called phase 3 of the school-based nursery agenda. So we know we would like to promote and put forward halfway houses to have a brand new school-based nursery. So there has been an awful lot of hopefully positive change. However, we know if you're a parent, councillor, whoever you're representing, your constituents, your families and so on, it has been problematic. And no, there's no getting around that. It's just how it's been. So that's pretty much my update at the moment. Like I say, I'm happy to answer any broad questions, but again, I can't go into the details about individuals.
Okay, is there any questions? Councillor Sheppey?
Yes, sorry, bulk classes don't work. They've had an extreme amount of pressure to staff that are already overstretched. And I'm a little bit confused. If KCC deal with births, deaths and marriages, how was this not planned out that all of these children are being born at Sheppey? Where are they not? I know we've got the plan for 2027, but there are children still today that don't have education places. There will be children in September that don't have education places, and it's not really good enough, is it?
Well, like I said, I have explained the fact that with the 2 new schools, 60 school places were immediately taken out of the system by the Department for Education. So immediately 2 forms of entry simply disappeared. As the council, we said, we are very uncomfortable about that because we knew the potential implications which we have seen. In terms of births, deaths and marriages, absolutely, we're actually facing a falling birth rate. We have seen primary schools on the island who might have been three forms of entry consult to go down to 2 forms of entry. Indeed, the Office for National Statistics is saying that the birth rate, how they understand this, I don't know, trust them, isn't going to be going up anytime until sort of 2050, 2055. So what we've actually got is a population peak that is coming through from primary into secondary, and then that's being followed up by pretty much a flatline birth rate. So we have to manage that. But like I said, the council only has particular levers. I think your answer to bulge classes, that is a tried and tested model, not only in the Kent County Council, but across schools in the nation. I mean, I was a head teacher for a long time, had to have a bulge class when I was head teacher in Croydon. And it is a legitimate way of meeting the problem.
It meets the problem, but it doesn't support staff. And if I could just come back, Chair, just.
Yeah.
You've touched on primary cases, which is absolutely amazing. And I think can play into our hands. KCC has ring-fenced money from the Queen Russian Region Generation Development that was ring-fenced for a primary school that we know we don't need at the moment. So can that money be used to support additional places or additional buildings?
Well, like I said, in terms, I think I mentioned it before, in terms of developing new school places, the government gives the council basic need funding. So in essence, there is money for that. But what I'm suggesting is that it's not as easy as a council, for example, going to school X and saying, we would like 2 forms of entry. You're dealing with a chief executive officer, particularly, who says, well, actually, I'm happy where I am. I don't want to expand my school. So you can see immediately, like I said, the council have all of the responsibilities, yet not all of the levers to achieve their strategic aims. So it is a case of speaking appealing to leaders on the island that actually the pupils want finally to stay in secondary education on the island. We would like you to come along with us. We will fund it via the government. We will build classrooms. We will add dining. We will do all of these things. However, if the Academy Trust wishes to say no, we have not got really many places to go. And therefore, when I gave my introduction, the levers that we actually do have are going back to the Department for Education. And obviously, as councillors, you can write to the DfE and express through your councillors, through your MP, you can do that. I'm just sort of suggesting that it is a problem that isn't as easy to solve as one might think. Going to developer contributions, absolutely. Birth rate on the island suggests that we don't need another primary school. If we opened a primary school, it would put the viability of other schools in danger. Some schools might have to shut. You have the shiny effect of a new primary school. Parents might want to go there and place at risk another primary school on the island. What I would like to see, but cannot promise, is more development for SEND, special educational needs and disabilities on the island. For example, we know that a lot of the children on the Isle of Sheppey who have to go to Meadowfield Special School have to travel an awful long way. It would be really nice to think, alongside the SEMH school, the CNI at Snowfield, that we could have an element of profound, severe and complex needs education. But it's all of it is not always easy to deliver.
Right, thank you. Sorry, if I've just got one question that was pre-sent in. I'll just open the floor up. So have we got Charlotte Tatum Hopkins here?
Chair, sorry, Charlotte couldn't make it this evening because her son with profound needs.
Yep.
Came first.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Do you want to, if you've got a question, would you like to?
If you're happy, I'm happy
Yeah.
to do that for Charlotte, if that's okay. There's a huge amount of families on the island that have children with either SEND or additional needs. And at some point they have all felt lonely and isolated with their family's position. We've seen a growing number of children falling out of the process when EHCPs allow places of education to say they cannot meet the needs of children, all leading to children not being supported in education for sometimes years and years on the island. This would not be acceptable for a mainstream child. So why are KCC creating a two-tier education system where the most vulnerable are hardest hit?
Thank you, councillor. Again, I understand the kind of thrust of the question. I think underneath it, there is maybe an individual pupil that might have been
So just,
putting that forward. I don't
so
know.
just take it away, Charlotte does have
Yeah.
children that are affected, but she also works for a group called SendQuest
Yes.
that deals with many families. So that question was specifically crafted
Yes.
to make sure that all of the families that have a silent voice, as we can see in the room this evening, lots of those families would love to have been here to talk about their children,
Yes.
but the sheer need of their child comes first, quite rightly.
Absolutely.
So absolutely, it's personal, but there is a large question as well.
I think, yes, absolutely, and I don't think I don't think that question is going to be answered very easily. I think if we look at the national picture, the government knows that the education system, especially around special needs and disabilities, is broken. They have pushed forward their white paper with particular reforms and so on. And we know, don't we, that in terms of parents feeling that they have to fight all the time, and they see an educational healthcare plan as a key starting point to at least open further support. And yet, even with the HCPs, that further support isn't necessarily forthcoming. I think it is a broken system. I think I'm an Ofsted inspector as well, and I inspect schools, and it is the same. It is all schools, and I would argue it's not just the schools on Sheppey, where schools are having to use their best endeavours to meet the needs of all pupils. We expect as a council for all schools to include the widest range of learners. We have our mainstream core standards, which we expect the teachers to follow. But we know, don't we, that there are always going to be pupils who sit outside of that kind of mainstream classroom. As a council, what we're doing, I mentioned it before, the specialist resource provisions. So over the last year, all of the assistant directors of education have been looking to upscale the amount of SRE in the county. We know if you look in the Kent commissioning plan, we've got £20 million here marked for that project, and we're all taking that forward. Again, it is that delicate conversation when you're talking to schools and academies. We would like your school to have an SRP. Again, it is that dance around, yes, some think it's a really, really good idea. Some are more reticent around funding, around the additional needs of the pupils, etc., etc. So in terms of navigating forward, it is a difficult picture. So, you know, I'm a parent as well. Both of my children have complex needs. I feel that pain and I feel that adversarial kind of push. It's not good enough. But again, I think just returning, the government know that. They've got their white paper, they have specific ideas about school inclusion places in schools, experts at hand, etc. I think the last thing I want to say is that the education budget is under huge strain in Kent. We know we are spending beyond our means. We spend an awful lot of money buying places from the independent sector. And, you know, if we're spending millions in that department, we're not spending it in our mainstream schools. And it is really thinking about how we can reduce the amount of EHCPs that we issue, but also get in as much of that money that we're spending beyond our mainstream setting in order to build those up. So it is, we only have the money that we are given by government, and you cannot make the pizza bigger. So we have to think how we can keep control of that money, because we have Maxwell here, adult social care, and the children's budget are absolutely, if we're not careful, will cause the council potentially to go bankrupt. It's as simple as that. So we have to really take those difficult decisions. Yeah.
So just to come back on that, 2 years ago, the white paper from the KCC talking about SEND locational manoeuvre, which was the idea that children would be supported to be educated in their own community. Absolutely needs to be put into action on Sheppey. All of the head teachers on the island supported the locational model, and yet we're still seeing multiple huge amounts of SEND children being part of transport that can be 2-3 hours.
Yes.
Now, it's not such a problem for other areas of Kent. However, we have seen outreach go down just recently,
Yes.
where numbers of children are kept in cars and transport hours and hours. And some of these children are not able to express their needs, which I know I'm talking to the converted.
Yes.
We know that. But these children absolutely need to be at the heart of what KCC are doing. And what worries me, and worries Charlotte and a lot of parents, is that because these children are coming with additional needs, that they potentially feel that they don't have a voice in that conversation. So when those children are sitting in cars for hours and hours, unable to go to the toilet, unable to eat in these cars, because that's what the contract says with transport, it does make a critical difference for those children to be educated in their community. So I'm not sure if actually the answer is it should come from central government. Actually, we are looking for things that KCC have already actioned to be put into place online, because KCC does know that SEND has a huge pull on the island. There are lots of families that are affected, and they're adding to our NEET numbers.
Yes.
So many of these children have been out of education for so long. Got one child that's 4 years that hasn't gone into a school, had a short timetable, EHCP has fallen out of bed, can't find a school that, you know, fits their needs. So that child stays at home, that parent then stays at home. It's not right for the child and it's not right for the family, but we do appreciate your time to take that back to Charlotte.
Yeah, absolutely, and Councillor Worcester, we know in terms of that there is absolutely nothing in what you have said that worries me, because exactly, you know, on a dark December night, would I want to put my child in a taxi to go to a school? I probably wouldn't, but actually, because of the geography, and also where we are at the moment, it's not even, say, a fair geography on one island, because this side of the island is not, as I've heard, not as well served in terms of buses and so on. I understand everything you have said, and you know, I probably said something I shouldn't. I know, Councillor Worcester, I think what would be really useful, if you come to Sessions House, you've met Craig, you've met, you know, Christine and so on, and I'm not saying bring everyone, but you feel free to bring one or two, and absolutely, we don't have all the answers, but of course we will listen. And we said we would like to do that in August, but it's not in some time in the future or a time that suits you.
Lovely, that sounds absolutely fantastic, and obviously that would have been lovely 2 years ago.
Yes.
Obviously, this conversation was first raised with this council.
Yes.
Swellborough councillors should have actually got involved. It should have been a KCC issue to look at. And we've been begging, we've been asking, we've raised it at full council a number of times. And I will just say in public that it's due to the tenacity of those parents that have been affected, which has raised the conversation around SEND children.
Yeah.
Because what mainstream children are going through now for Sheppey, SEND children have been going through far longer.
Yeah.
And we need to fight this fight for every single child, because they all deserve to be treated absolutely fairly.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I've got a pen that would like to ask a question. I don't know if you.
Yeah, well, I've got a list of, if that's all right, I'm just sort of working my way through the list.
And that's all right, I might come back with you.
Yeah, if that's not a problem. So next on the list, I've got Councillor McDonald.
Yes, thank you. Peter McDonald. I did an awful lot in commercial industry, and when I fell out with the chairman, I was a qualified teacher, so I went teaching mathematics at under Richard Barton at the Sheppey School. So my father was a very good teacher, and so was my sister, my twin sister. We used to have a very good education system on Sheppey. There were two you've got to look at history, otherwise nothing works. But we had two, girls' modern and the boys' modern, that were extremely good. And we had two technical schools, which nobody believes us, but they were some of the finest in the country, which trained people. And people used to come from the city to recruit from Sheppey, because they were so good. That was destroyed by the then county council in about 1960. And Sheppey School and the Trendies took over. And when I went in, Richard Barton was actually brought the levels up quite a lot. So I've seen it all, quite frankly. As I say, they were extremely good. So when you're negotiating with the Department of Education, I'm not popular in Whitehall, I'm told, but who cares about that? They've got a responsibility, and they're not delivering, frankly, and they haven't done for many years. With regard to the, I don't know the regimes, but the two schools, I did look at the Prime Minister, extremely good. But, when I was teaching, I had to teach in porter cabins to start with, because that was extra accommodation. And I can't see why that can't be done if you need some extra space quickly. They can be very good. And, yeah, you need the teachers, but, you know, with the situation at the moment, I can see why people wouldn't be very.
Again, the answer is, there's a huge, two things. There's a huge issue in terms of, we don't have the powers to say to an academy trust, oh, by the way, we're going to put 6 mobile classrooms. We don't have that power. And also, it is an important thing to say, but I want to caveat it, that it isn't the main reason that is possibly not going to happen, is that there's a huge revenue cost on mobile classrooms that the council have to meet, a huge revenue cost, not a capital cost. And therefore, we have to find revenue, and, you know, all budgets are really tight.
Well, I understand that, but I think it's up to the Department of Education, quite frankly, to tell these trusts they're paid from the public purse.
Absolutely.
And I think they should be told, we need to increase the numbers.
Absolutely.
And that's regardless.
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, well, I think you've got to be very strict with them. You know,
Yeah.
they won't like it. As I say, I'm not popular in Whitehall.
No.
Although transport's my main subject, but, you know, who cares?
Right,
As long as we get something local.
yeah. Councillors, I know I've got a few councillors on the list. Do you mind if I go to members of the public first, if that's okay? So I've got,
I've got a granddaughter that hasn't been to school now since last year. We've done no end of research, appeals, everything, and we've just got nowhere at all. Now, what they've phoned up and told my daughter is that the first choice she put down, no, she didn't put down, the choice that she was given, first of all, was at Abbey School in Faversham. Now, my daughter's already said that there's no way she can get there. There wasn't any transport supplied. She would have to get a bus at Walden, get off at Sheerness, get a train to Sittingbourne, from Sittingbourne get a train to Faversham. From Faversham, she's got to walk 10 minutes to
I
the school.
totally understand.
But she's 12.
I totally
And
understand.
you want her to go out at 6 o'clock in the morning in the dark.
I totally
How
understand.
would you ever think of sending a child?
I totally understand, I really need to empathise. Was that for this, the part, when is this
It's
for?
25. wasn't it?
25.
it was the last year,
It was the last year, wasn't it?
there's still children out of
There are
school.
still children, and there are no easy answers.
Well, there's
that.
got to be an answer somewhere for these children to attend school.
How? Again, it's incredibly complex for us. We
Well,
have,
what do you think it is for the parents?
I'm not disagreeing whatsoever. The statutory obligation for the local authority, the council, is to provide a sufficiency of places. Unfortunately, and I know this will not be popular, they don't have to be the school next door, the school in the town.
No, because they don't have to be a school at Faversham.
They don't, but in this case, and I'm not saying it's right, that's happened. I can't really discuss any individual cases.
But when this first happened last year, there was a group of parents that got together, had loads and loads of meetings, and that the parents actually were going to supply a hall, and we had 2 teachers that were going to support these children, but the KCC wouldn't help support them at all. So
No,
you're
because-
depriving the children of education.
No, I don't,
You are.
I don't think that's fair. I've already
Well,
said,
I don't think it's fair that my
I'm
granddaughter
not,
hasn't got
listen,
one.
I'm not.
Right. Yeah, right, hold on, right, we've said no personal cases at the start, so,
Right, but you've.
but, mum, sorry. Exactly,
Can I just come back on that?
I'm just gonna, I just wanted to stop the situation because
I
it's,
think it's really important that I do. The local authority, the statutory obligation is to provide a school place. It has met, even if you don't agree with it, it has met its statutory obligation with place in Babshire. Going back to a hall and teachers and so on, how can we? That you'd have to be registered with Ofsted, you would have to,
It was an only.
it was a lovely idea, but yeah, I can't answer that.
no, and that's what I was saying, right, we can't go into personal cases, did say that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, but, right, sorry, right, I had the lady, sorry, at the back there, I don't know your name. I have got a fair list, so if we could keep it sort of.
One of the things was I didn't understand why the kids in Sittingbourne didn't go to Faversham and the kids from us went to Sittingbourne, because they're 20 minutes from Faversham.
It depends. It's very good question. Again, the world of addictions is incredibly complex, as you can imagine. It depends on things like sibling links. It depends on the whole ranking of the choices, etc., etc. And this is absolutely no criticism of residents on the island. However, it should be noted that a lot of parents did not put down, and I'm not saying you, and I'm not saying anyone in this room, they didn't put down a choice of school, they didn't do the form and so on. In response to that, and I'm not saying this is what's happened, in response to that, myself, the cabinet member for education, came to East Kent College in September. We ran admissions sessions, how to fill out the form, etc., because we didn't want a repeat of that. I think that situation, in terms of not filling out the forms correctly, has improved.
But
which is good.
that was the other thing I wanted to say, was that my friend went to, her daughter goes this year, and she went to EKC, and there was a member of KCC there saying, make sure you put all the options down.
That would have been me, probably.
Because
Yeah.
that's why the people got Faversham, because they didn't put all the options down to didn't know.
Well, again, I think we would need to be, I think you would need to, be careful to say that was a lie. I think you were given advice to put all of the options down, and actually when it gets ranked, looking at postcodes, looking at sibling links, looking at EHCPs, looking at accepted things, it will go through the admissions processes, sift.
But that's not the point, is it? If you say they didn't put different schools down, they just put one school down, that was a problem, but that's not.
I said to you, that was the case for entry in September 25, not 26.
It wasn't all, I must admit, talking about 25, that wasn't all. There was no people going around the admission placements in 25 saying you had to put all 4 options down. There was no option for that. The children at this end of the island mostly got punished for going further away. Because there was, most of the children, of the 60 children that didn't get a place were from this end of the island.
Because it's 27.
Yeah.
It's
It's only 6 miles if you've got a boat. I'm not, right, did you have another question though?
The other question was, obviously, I mean, I drive 105 miles a day, not a personal pressure to put that in there. And to get there, I rang Sheppey Wheels, and they said they did quite happily take 10 children in a minibus that as a usual bus we pay for. We just need 10 children. Sheppey gossip, because there's 10 people out there. But if that had been done for a beginning, just have a minibus, like
that's not hard.
Mm.
Why is that solution not implemented straight away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Next year,
And again, as a member of, an officer of the council, it has to fit in, and I don't work in the home to school transport area. It would have to fit in with KCC policy.
Mm.
So I don't know whether it would or not, and again, it's a case, I'm happy to talk to Councillor Worcester about that when we talk to Craig, who is home to school transport.
sorry, just to add, just for a point of reference, that actually that Karen Masters approached Kent County Council, who already holds the responsibility of taking many children off the island. And KCC point blankly refused to give them any more funding to create the routes for the community partnership.
They told them to walk or cycle.
Again, I can't, you know.
I'm just correcting that as a point of reference because parents have gone around every single angle around this transport. And when the cabinet member for KCC came over, amongst the questions that were asked, and we finally got an answer other than, I don't know, which was really shocking to hear from an education cabinet member that no answer to no, as well as councillors sitting in meetings with parents and saying you have to be prepared, your child's taking a year out of education. Another shocking thing they were actually. No support was provided by KCC after it being promised that they would have officer support. So even though the decision had been made, when the appeal things were going through, it's an absolute lottery of support. Some parents got support via appeals, and some people got no support for appeals. Some people were told by KCC schools on the telephone, why are you contacting us? When actually, what we're saying is that's a massive rhetoric change. I'm pleased that this year's cohort got some support, but is that going to be going forward? Is that a promise that access is going to be looked at? Because it cannot be right that a child suffers because a parent cannot fill in a form properly. That's completely unacceptable and wouldn't be acceptable in any other. We would be finding ways to allow these parents to access forms. But if KCC are not on the island providing that support, how do they access that? Great use of MKC. That's lovely to hear that they've stepped up. Can you promise that in years going forward, please?
Councillor Worcester, we know that we've had lots of children when we met at Pride College. I don't, there is no easy way to mend 2025. It was simply not good. And I, in not defence, but supporting Beverly as a cabinet member, she has been absolutely determined that the residents of Sheppey are heard and listened to, and that we don't repeat 25 again. She came out personally when we went to EKC. I was there, Craig was there, et cetera, et cetera. I'm here now, you know, it's not comfortable, is it, hearing the feedback? And I think, you know, I'm quite an important but small cog in a big machine. You know, I will keep coming back and listen and try my very hardest that we don't repeat the future. I think I want to say again that September 2027 is going to be a really crunch year. We need 5 forms in 3. That means, you know, all of the 5 non-selective schools, each of them need to come forward and say, I'll take the bold class to 30. The odds of that happening is going to be tricky, but I am doing my best with the DFE, with my colleagues, with Beverly, to ensure that that is happening. I've got a meeting with them on Monday. All the leaders coming together, the DFE, I've set the scene. So on Monday, I really want to be hearing, I'll offer this, I'll do that. So Monday is a big day for me, and it's almost meeting every fortnight until we solve that problem early enough. So yeah, I am listening, but it is very difficult to get, you know, to to make up for what happened in 25.
Okay, sorry. Kirsty.
Right, okay, thank you. So you're saying, for 2027?
Yeah.
You can have an extra 90 spaces. By, an extra 2 passes at
No.
night and 1 at EKC.
No, 2020, hopefully, all
28.
being well, September 2028.
28. Okay, so we'll get to the in-between bit in a minute. But that extra 90 spaces, does that also include the fact that Lee Academy has already got a bulge class? So that's an extra 8 spaces, and Westlands is already overpan as well at 15, so that's 45 spaces overpan already for 2 of the closest schools. So that 90 then automatically gets half to 45. So in 2028, all of these schools going to be asked to take bulge classes again
In which year?
in 2028.
No, I mean,
Because if with all the new houses that are coming online, don't tell me that there's not less than 45 extra kids coming onto the island with hundreds of houses being built. So it's great, but I think just take it saying an extra 3 classes, that's not going to cut the mustard. quite
okay, so
frankly.
looking at the resident, can I just answer that one?
No, not yet. Okay, so will they be asked to take bulge classes again? Because I think that's the only way around it. Also, what happens when ST is full, City Law School? It has dramatically improved its reputation over the last 18 months to 2 years. My son, despite me putting 4 schools on my application this year, none of which were the Sittingbourne School. Guess where it's going? The Sittingbourne School. I'm not overly keen on that just because of the transport. He has autism, he doesn't have an EHCP, they're putting him on the bus anyway with a bunch of kids that are going to kick him. So the chances are by December, I ain't going to be working for you anymore because I will be homeschooling my child by December because I won't be able to.
Can we, I know,
But after that, so, when the Sittingbourne School is full, what is the plan for all these children from this end of the island? Because it is KCC who is deciding that EKC and Lee Academy work off a distance. Okay, I went to panel last Wednesday for a place at EKC, and it was very clear from the panel and from the deputy head at EKC that it is KCC's decision to implement distance as a criteria in the allocation section. So this year, my son's from this year's, not Leanne's, this year's one. Only 8 out of 22 children in the local school, where they're all from the east end of the island, only 8 out of the 22 out of the on criteria 4. So not with an EHCP, not with a sibling, not with what's the other one?
parents working there?
Not a looked after child. 2/3 of those children were not allocated a space for an island school, or so they are all going to Sittingbourne School. What happens when Sittingbourne School's full?
Okay,
Where are you going to keep sending these children? Because they are driving past school
Okay.
after school after school after school. What happens when they end up in Ashford, Maidstone? What happens when those schools are full?
okay, thank you. I think we had 3 questions there.
Yeah.
I think I'll probably take just one more question after this, because we're.
Yeah, no, that's,
It's been nearly an hour.
yeah, no, that's fair enough.
So let's unpack the first bit. So, the planned admission numbers for EKC is 150 with no 6th form, so 150. The planned admission number, as it stands for Lee Academy Minster, is 180. Yes, for the last 2 years, they have taken a bulge class of year 7s, and therefore it's gone, for that particular year, it's gone up to 210. The strategy is for Lee Academy Minster to permanently expand from 180 to 210. Okay, and for EKC from 150 up to 180. Second question, now you might need to remind me What was your second question, forgive me?
Well, the first one was, will they be, or will those schools be asked to take Bolge classes again? But, what happens when
You know-
the school is full?
Okay, so you know from what I've said that I have already asked all of the schools that they are going to have to work with the council and the DfE to come forward as a collective solution to find 5 forms of entry. So how that will cut out, I don't know. One school might say, well, I'll take 2 forms of entry. One school might say, I'll take 1 form of entry. One say, I'm not taking any forms of entry. We have to play that out. I want to just hone back in on the distance, because I think that's really, really important. My colleagues at the DfE are absolutely aware that the admissions policy for both of those schools, there is something around the distance. And my colleagues at the DfE would like to speak, obviously, to those 2 academies.
It's not the academies, it's KCC when they.
Kirsty, sorry,
Personally, I want to just interject there. An academy trust is its own admissions authority. They set the admissions. We do not. That is another example of the lack of levers a local authority has in people-based planning. Do you remember I said we have got all the responsibilities and very little levers?
But it was, they didn't set that as their criteria.
They set their
Lee
admissions.
Council did, but EKC didn't.
They
It was-
set.
That was back in.
right, sorry, hold on, I'm not gonna have, as chair here, can we go through the chair?
Last thing, what happens when the City Board school is full? Again, and I don't want to go into the weeds on this one, but in terms of the Swale Borough Council's local plan, we also have a strategic site, Northwest Sydney Bourne, Booton Road. So again, that's slated, if there is demand for that, for a brand new 6th form entry with 6th form secondary school in Northwest Sydney Bourne.
Right, I've got one more question that I'm afraid I'm not gonna get to the councillors, I'm afraid it's, but
But you
It's-
can direct
Um,
council
if you-
questions via Dolly and.
yeah, if you send your questions to either, to Dolly, Mike.
Yeah. You're talking about, birth rate.
Yeah.
How much you look at development, sort of, you know, at the moment on Sheppey, we've got probably 800 houses under construction.
Yes,
Planning, which have been granted probably for at least another 1,000,
yes,
plus more in the pipeline. We've got the local plan going forward, every patch of green grass on the island, in fact, the scheduled in the local plan as possible for housing. Couple of farmers are rubbing their hands on the island.
yes.
With what's going to happen. This is going to produce a huge number of young people. You talk about birth rate, you know, you're talking about possibly within 5 years, 2,000 more homes in the eastern part of the island.
Okay,
These are
so-
going to produce a number of children.
So in essence, there is a government formula for a house, a dwelling, depending on how many bedrooms, is it affordable housing, et cetera, That is called the pupil product ratio. So when sites come forward, the statisticians in ACC work with the developer, they look at, say, 1,000 houses, they look at the blend of houses, and then they apply the pupil product ratio. And then that spits out an indicative number of pupils. The problem with children is that they don't all come at the same age. Some can be older, some can be younger, of course. And there is another factor that I think is really, really important, is inward migration. So some houses may not produce any children at all because they have moved from one house in Laysdown and they've gone over to a vineyard place and they haven't produced any more children. So it is a bit like nailing jelly to a wall, but we work on those figures. And then if there is a demonstrable need for for example, a primary school, that is when we will work with developers to bring one forward. Going back, the issue is on the island, not just on the island, lots of other places. Lots of the primary schools here have gone from 3 forms of entry down to 2 forms of entry. Some have gone from 3 forms of entry down to 1. So before we bring forward a brand new school, we will ask those schools to go up their path. They fill back out again. So that is kind of what would happen. So I'll give you an example. For example, in Canterbury, we had near Thannington, the Saxon Way development, that was predicated on a 2-form entry primary school. We were going to bring forward 1 form entry, and when it filled out, we would build the second part of the school. Because of various situations, so for example, the house is not building out at the rate expected, we could not bring that primary school forward, because if we did, it would put the viability of other primary schools in jeopardy and they may close, and we wouldn't want to do that. So going back to your housing, pupil product ratio, it is considered. If there is a demonstrable need for children, we will expand the existing schools if we can. If not, only then would we think about a strategic site for a brand new primary school. Say, for example, Thistle Hill. I think that was a relatively new school recently.
Okay. Right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
That item.
Yep.
If we've got a meeting,
Yes.
and say, maybe the action point is you're gonna email yourself with some projected dates, and we'll have a written response to bring back to this committee on the back of that meeting, so that those minutes can be shared and those answers can be shared with the island meeting, if that's okay, Chair, can we do that?
Yep. I think residents would appreciate that.
And that way they can see the answers to their own
Yeah.
questions written down, if that's okay.
I'm not 100% sure that that would be appropriate. I think I've offered the chat. I don't want to think that we would have to write specifically around individual cases, so I don't think I can.
Should we say that a bit then and say, we can let this meeting know that that meeting has happened?
I think that would be great.
Yeah, and then we'll record it.
Yeah. Super, Dolly, thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Now, on to agenda item 6. I would like to introduce Garrett Radcliffe, who's the new chair of the East Sheppey Pride in Place Neighbourhood Board, to give an update on what is happening.
It's my first meeting. I think you could have put me first chair to
Yeah.
to get some light relief before Robert spoke. But it's really good to be here this evening, and thank you to everybody that introduced yourselves to me and gave me the opportunity to for me to introduce myself to you. I know some friendly faces in the crowd already, and I hope to get to know many more of you over the next few months and years, because obviously the Pride in Place project has an estimated duration of 10 years. And one of the things I'm going to be saying tonight is, why are we stopping at 10, where actually this project should be 20 or 30 years? We can't just rely on the 20 million that we're getting to make it stretch to the end of 10. I've come tonight to tell you a little bit about me and a little bit about my vision of how we're going to move forward with this. But what you're not going to get tonight are the list of things that we're going to spend the money on, because that's not up to me. That's going to be up to you by the board to put our plan together, and that plan needs to be in place by the middle of November, I think it is. We haven't got very long. I am incredibly privileged to have been selected for this job. And it's funny, the provider said to me, "Oh, well done, you know, that's great, put yourself forward." Others have sort of winked or nudged at me and said, "Good luck with that." But I've got some time at the moment, and the reason I've got some time is, in April, I made the really difficult / really easy decision to step down from my full-time job. I was the CEO of a multi-academy trust, those mean academies that we're talking about tonight. I was the CEO of multi-academy trust in Dartford, and I had 8 schools in Dartford and Gratian with 4,500 pupils, with 750 staff and a budget of 30 million every year. The reason I'm telling you about that is because I was there for 18 years. So I travelled either from St Margaret's Bay in Dover, where we lived before, or from the island, up the A2 every day to a job that I absolutely adored, but I stayed there 18 years. So I'm in this for the long haul as well, because I've been on the island for 14 years now. I'm starting to be accepted as a local by some. But nearly 10 years ago, some of you might remember there was a show on the telly, BBC DIY. And my family were incredibly lucky to be the recipient of the biggest build they have ever done. Still the biggest build they've ever done, actually. So nearly 10 years ago, me and Kyle and our kids, we felt the full force of the Sheppey community, right the way from Lansdowne and the way to Sheerness and through to Elmley. And we knew that we wanted to be here for a very long time. And because of that project, where there were hundreds of people who gave up their time to a family that they didn't know, we wanted to give something back. Which is why we then started Curly's Legacy, which is a charity based on the island. And some of you might know Curly's Farm. It's a little farm just up the road, or that way,
It's that one.
And we started that in our back garden just over 9 years ago. And it's ironic, isn't it? We're talking about SEND children tonight, but we started it because we have 3 children who have high levels of SEND ourselves, and one of them couldn't find a school place. So we started a little provision for our Curly, which is why it's Curly's Farm, and now we are an independent special school on the island of Sheppey, just up the road, catering for the biggest level of need.
It's brilliant.
Thank you. So I've got to work there for a bit as well. And so taking on this role is a huge privilege to me. Why am I doing it? Doing it because I believe in community. I told you I worked in Dartford and Gratian for the last 18 years. There are some really amazing communities in Dartford that are always criticised. And it's the same on Sheppey. And actually, I'm incredibly proud to be part of this community. I also believe in the concept of pride. And I think there are lots of people in the room who are here fighting for their children or their families or their community because they have pride either in their little unit or the bigger community that they serve. And it was so amazing to see. I think it's probably about 90% of the audience here are councillors. And you give up your time for your community. I don't really want to be a councillor right now, but I'd love to lead this project because actually I think we can do something really meaningful for it. And the other reason I'm doing it is because over the last 18 years, me, my husband Kyle, my 4 kids, we have been incredibly privileged, right? I don't come from a privileged background. My mum worked in W.H. Smith's in Folkestone, and then when she left there, she went to work in one of the toilet roll factory on that estate. She used to do a job overnight just to keep us going. But I do feel privileged because everything that we have been able to access is part of our family, but that's through DIYSOS, or through my education, or through my job. That's given me privilege. And I'm in a point now where I'm going to give something back, right? But I don't want to just give it back. I want to actually listen to the community, see what they want. And the skills I've developed over the last 18 years as the head teacher and CEO means I might be able to offer something back. I don't have the answers. I won't be giving you my ideas. about how we're going to spend 20 million quid, because they need to come from you. Okay, not coming with an agenda of what I want to spend it on. But I think I have some of the skills to listen to you to make sure that we spend it right. But also, we don't only spend it right, but we spend it properly and we spend it speedily in line with the 10-year plan. And people in this local community, from Eastchurch to Warden to Laysdown, can see the benefit of the money that we are spending. And I take that responsibility really seriously. So tonight, I'm not sharing with you the plan, because there isn't a plan yet. We've got the expression of interest form out there now to join the board. So whether it's you or your partner or your older child or your next door neighbour or someone who in your family always has a lot to say, get them to step forward, because we want people on the board who are local, who are passionate and who have ideas and the skills to actually bring this project together. So I have, though, some guiding principles that I just wanted to share with you tonight about how I'm going to conduct myself and what I want to see from this project. First one is, as I've said already, this is a 10-year plan, but I want it to be a 20-year plan or a 30-year plan. And we do that not only by making sure we spend the money, but we actually get more money for the money that we're given. So whether that's working with other businesses or other charities or other organisations to do match funding for certain things, or to make sure that we're thinking about sustainable ones and doing things. So if there's a project that's going to last 10 years, let's push it to 12 years or 15 years to make sure that we get the most for our money. Second thing is, it has to be local decisions made by local people. So what I don't want is a board full of people from Maidstone and Sevenoaks and Tunbridge and Folkestone. They have to be from this community and then from the Isle of Sheppey, but we also need the right skills as well. So I want people who have a passion, I want people who have a vested interest in their community, because those people's ideas are no less important than someone who's had a public voice for 10 years. I'd love to hear the voices from people who have never been heard. And Councillor Worcester touched on this earlier in terms of that silent voice. I mentioned Curly's Farm earlier, and I was speaking to a colleague at Curly's Farm who lives on one of the caravan farms. And she was telling me how it's a really brilliant place to live for her, because there's a sense of community. But how isolating and lonely it becomes at the end of October, and the lights go off, the rain is coming down, and suddenly she's stuck in her caravan or her chalet for hours on end. And it's that voice I want to hear from, as well as anybody else's. This is called Pride in Place. It's not called extension of Swellborough Council or extension of the NHS or extension of something else. So we should not be spending this money on projects where the money should be coming from somewhere else. And that's really important for me, that I'm happy as the chair of the board to be holding other organisations to account on the behalf of the residents if they're not stepping up to the services and the funding they should be, because we need to make sure that the purpose of this 20 million over 10 years is to fulfil its purpose, which is to have pride and to give additional resources and opportunities to this community. My next principle is about being open, transparent, honest, and having good communication, which is really important. So I am going to hear over the next month, I'm sure, 1,000 ideas. And I really value and want to hear every one of those valuable ideas. But it would be really unfair of me for every idea I hear to say, yeah, that's a goer and that's going to be brilliant and my goodness, what a good idea. and that we can do everything, because we're not going to be able to do everything. And as a head teacher of 20 years, and my first headship, by the way, was Milton Court in City Ward. And I remember 20 years ago having the same conversation with children that I probably had 6 months ago, which is, what do you want next for your school? And the answer is always the same. It's always a swimming pool. And it is rare that the swimming pool is the right option, because actually people don't understand the sustainability of the swimming pool or everything that goes with it, that is not going to be covered by a £20 million grant over 10 years. But I will absolutely want to be a good communicator. So I hope you don't get sick of the newsletters or the social media posts or me knocking on doors, because I want to hear from people in the community. Being a head teacher for 20 years and being in education for 30 years, though, I have to admit I have a bit of a focus here on the youth of our community. And I really want us to be focusing on them as well as the wider community too. And it's really important for us to remember that a 15-year-old today will probably be a dad working and thinking about where they're living on their own or with a partner or with a family in 10 years' time, when the proposed end of this project is upon us. So we've got to involve the 15 and 16-year-olds now to make sure they are invested for the full length of this project too. Because if there is a 15-year-old or a 13-year-old living in Lansdowne or Eastchurch or Warden, I'd love to keep them there and actually to get them to build this community and prosper for the future. And I think this project can go a long way to help that. This is also a guiding principle for mine, that this should not be a political board. So it's not going to have one voice in my ear telling me exactly where we're going. And I want to listen to every voice, because I think, you know, politics today is very different to when even I started voting when I was 18. And actually, I want to hear the ideas and the opinions of everybody, not just because of a particular way I voted in the last election. And you don't know how hard it was me sitting here listening to all of the conversation about education, but that's not my role. My role is actually to find the answers and the ways forward for our project for Eastchurch, Warden, Lansdowne. So I am going to stop there, really, to say the next stages are to appoint the board. And then we are going to see some pretty rapid movement in the short term. The board will be appointed by the end of July, and we will have had our first or even second meeting by then. Then we will set out the plan right up until the end of November, where we have to submit the plan. And there is also a little bit of money that we can spend on what is going to be called a quick win, right? So those things that we really need doing urgently or quickly that don't cost 3 million, but actually might cost 10 grand to do something. So we'll be consulting on that as well really quickly too. Between now, it's the 11th of June today, I think, and then the end of July, I'm going to be knocking on your doors, visiting your parish councils, speaking to the schools to gain further of those ideas. And as soon as that board is appointed, that is their first job too. Because our first board meeting will not be about gaining the opinions of anyone on that board. That first board meeting is for me to tell them that they need to go and get the opinions of the community. And it's only when we've got all of those opinions that we're going to come back and formulate that plan. Like some people have said in the room tonight, I have 4 kids at home, very understanding husband, but I've also got one in sitting board at the moment that needs to be collected very soon. And I won't be staying for the whole meeting. I will be in future, but I fitted this in fairly late notice after being appointed. But I'm incredibly proud
to be standing here talking to you. Some of you nodding, some of you thinking, oh, you're gonna this here. But if you want to contact me after this meeting, please take my email address. You are very welcome to contact me directly. I don't have a gatekeeper. I don't have my email screened by anyone. And if any of you, either individually or preferably in threes or fours, want to meet up for a coffee somewhere to tell me your ideas personally, I am yours, right? So let's do that in the next few weeks. My email address, I'll write it on a little bit of paper here before I go. And anyone is very welcome to put it down and to take it and to contact me directly.
But the people online, would you mind just
I'll put it in
saying?
the chat, yeah. No worries, still put it in the chat. And I'm really happy, Chair, to take any questions before I go.
Right, so briefly, as we're on a bit of a time constraint, is there any questions? Councillor Harrison, hand up first.
It's not so much a question, Chair, but I am delighted for being at this end of the island. I'm really impressed because that's the first time I've heard that. And I hope you grab this opportunity with both hands and feet because you can do so much. I mean, I didn't know Gary, but I'm very impressed with how he's come across. And I think working together, which is the only way to get things done, you know, things are really, really looking up. So please do grab it with both hands. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, as probably some of you know, I am one of the ward councillors for here, and I was absolutely delighted when we got told we had Gary as chair of Pride in Place, because I knew we could take this project many, many places when I heard that Gary had got the chair's role.
Yep, and just to say, I recruited Gary and we had some really excellent candidates who have hopefully all agreed to be on, you know, put themselves forward for the board too. So you start projects like this thinking nobody's going to want to do it. We ended up with lots of really, really good people, and Gary was the best. And the other thing is, I think it's just worth introducing Daniel, who is being recruited to work with Gary. So you'll get to see a lot of him too.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Very quickly, my name's Daniel Mays. This is day one for me, where I've been recruited as the programme manager for the Pride in Place programme. So I'm as passionate as Gary is around the programme as well. I'm not from Sheppey, but I'm born and bred in Swale. My family moved down from London. Beautiful stay in London, moved out here, and this is what I'm born. So I was passionate as well, and I was doing everything I can to support the board with our community engagement person, as well as make sure it's really community centred. And I look forward to seeing you and working with you. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Swiss, did I see your hand go up or not? No?
I just wanted to ask how many board members there'll be.
So the board has some quite specific criteria. So the first criteria is there has to be a minimum of 8. That's me, the MP, a representative from ward. Then of those 8, as a minimum of half of those, or 51%, have to be living or working in Sheppey East. I'm looking for 10 to 12 because you're going to get one that, you know, decides after the first meeting it's not for them. And actually, I'm going to be setting people on the board a lot of jobs to do. And I need more than just, you know, 6 or 8 people, but it is a minimum of 8.
Is there anyone else? Yep.
I think it's like our turn, because the rest have got to be involved with project delays down recently. That's just get involved with. We give a water troubles from Curly's farmhouse to the pool, and I did a full survey on that. And I highlighted where the major problem is, but the development agency just says you always get a bit of silt and weed where where the grills are, and it went up and talking about it.
Yeah.
But, I'm willing to assist. I don't cost anything. It's about, I never tried anyone anything, and I always put this, I'd like to put it down forward to you, and, there's some things, because something that is important to you is to bring chances to the coastal park, the word's been used of that, and I'd like to be, in fact, help assist to get some things going, to get that right.
Amazing. My email is, I've just passed my email.
We'll make sure you
Yeah,
get
please.
it, councillor Washington.
Right, okay. Yes.
I know a lot of people, their ears pricked up a little bit when we heard about the geographical location of this funding. Can you clarify which sections, because obviously East Church, Leydown and Warden's given, but there's a section of Minster. Could you clarify which section is so everyone knows?
Yeah, so, that is, it is a very small strip of Minster. However, it is part of the area that has been drawn up according to, the Office of National Statistics, data that they have. And that will, I can't say exactly where it's going to be confirmed because the area is actually still being confirmed from the Pride in Place central team. Once we've got orders in place.
Okay.
But it is, the majority is Laysdown, Warden and East Church. But there are a couple of roads within Minster that are also covered.
Okay.
From the project.
Thank you.
Yes. Can I just ask, you say that, you know, they make a train, people, so it does 100, will say, why, how do you get all that done, the insufficient process, or what, how should you spend?
So the expression of interest went out on, social media and there is a form to fill in on the council website. And there's a deadline of that for next week, I believe. From there, there's going to be a shortlisting process to make sure that we've got people who have, so we'll cut out anyone, for example, that lives in London, because you'll always get somebody that applies that isn't anywhere near London. And then that very first shortlisting process will just be to see whether they have a particular passion for the local area or a particular skill that we might need on the board. From there, there are going to be one-to-one interviews. And the dates are already in the diary for that so that we don't delay in starting the project.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else quickly? No?
I am so sorry.
No, that is fine. And thank you very much for coming along.
No problem.
And
Thank you.
look forward to welcoming you. Next few items on the agenda, we have reports about the Sheerness Revival Project update. Hopefully you've all briefly seen them in your agenda pack. And just to looking at time constraints, does anyone have any questions on them, or are you okay just to sort of read through? Councillor Harrison?
Questions? Just looking at the contract.
Sorry, say that again.
She said this council looking at the breach of contract for the installation centre. Their decision to pull out.
Oh, right, I might have to pass that on to you, Larissa.
So, the council is seeking all the necessary advice to understand where to go next, but we have responded to the consultation being very clear that our number one thing is we do want the medical centre in the health hub. So, that is our first priority, and then we're seeking all the necessary advice to understand what steps we can take next.
Yeah, it's not mentioned in the report, but it's Sheppey Matters. Been on Health Delivery Centre for the last 22 years. They are going back. The Sheppey Matters will be returning to the Health Delivery Centre as soon as they can. They've been working under not good conditions on 3 or 4 locations, delivering their services, which have been good, and want to get back very quickly and start raising the funds again quick check, £5 million over the last 6 years has been brought into the island by Sheppey Matters. They want to carry on with that. So not in the report, we're coming back.
Brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Worcester.
Just really quickly, with the impact on the Sheerness Town Council, we absolutely want to see the return of Sheppey Matters to the Health Visiting Centre. Thank you so much to the community widely over Sheppey, but obviously we have really missed them and want to just thank them for their absolute perseverance through the transition of time, because they have been in different buildings, they have still been providing services, they've still been there for their community. And absolutely, I hope there's a positive partnerships and goes forward. Absolutely, involved Sheppey Matters, because I don't know what some people will do without them. So, absolutely, Sheppey Matters, we thank you for you.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that goes for the whole island, that there's a support of Sheppey Matters. Right, moving on then, if there is no other questions regarding that, to the public forum. Does any members of the public have any questions?
I've got all the upbeat ones, so I'm sorry, I'm going to go a little bit slow.
Okay.
I'm mostly concerned with people at Queenborough regarding the introduction of the car park challenges and the impact they're having on our community.
We have got an agenda item on the car park, so I don't know whether you want to raise your question then.
Okay. The strength of the feeling of this issue is not be ignored. More than 4,000 people signed a petition opposing this charge. This is not a small number. It represents a significant proportion of local residents, businesses, volunteers and visitors who believe this policy is damaging our town. Since the charge was introduced, Queenborough has been hit hard. Our community centre is losing volunteers and clubs. People who once gave their time freely to support community activities are now reconsidering whether they can afford to come. Community groups that bring people together to find participation more difficult. Local businesses are also suffering. We're hearing many reports of downturns in trade. These are not minor fluctuations. They are substantial losses that threaten livelihoods and the future of local enterprises. There's one business that already has closed in Queenborough. And this is a real consequence of policy that's having a devastating effect on our economy. Perhaps the clearest indication of the policy failure is visible in the car parks themselves. They are empty. People are waiting with their feet. Instead of generating the anticipated income, the charges are discouraging people from visiting Queenborough altogether. Empty car parks generate no income, no trade to local businesses, and no benefit to the community. Queenborough has always been a proud and resilient town, and we understand the financial pressures facing local councils. But any policy must be judged on its outcomes. When businesses are suffering, community organisations are struggling, visitors are staying away, and residents overwhelm the exposure scheme, surely it's time to ask whether this approach is working. So tonight I ask the councillors directly, how do you propose to make this right? How will you support the business that have suffered losses? How will you help the community centre, its volunteers and its clubs? How will you encourage business back to Queenborough? And what evidence will you require before accepting that this policy is causing harm that outweighs any financial benefit? The people of Queenborough deserve answers. They deserve to know their voices are being heard and their concerns are being taken seriously. 4,000 signatures represent a clear message from the community. We are asking you to listen, to review the impact honestly, and to work with the residents and visitors to find a solution that supports both the council's needs and the future of our town. Finally, after listening to your opening remarks, can the committee councillors here today vote to write to the appropriate subcommittee to ask for these charges to be revoked and show their support for our community and businesses that have been affected?
Yeah. I think that question brings us into our next item, which I don't want to not answer the question, but I think it needs to be answered within the actual agenda item. Is there any other public questions quickly first? If not, we will then move on and bring that question starting the main car parking agenda item. Was there any other public questions? I can see, no? Okay, so Councillor Whiting, if you can, obviously we've had the main question from one of the affected communities, if,
Okay, thanks, Chair. I fully support what Simon's been saying. And it's the same story I get from the businesses. I met with them yesterday in Halfway. The effect on their staff, the cost on their staff, and then talking with the police, the effect on local residents of the people that are no longer using the car parks that are blocking the streets, blocking people's driveways, by parking on the street because they have no access to the car park in Queenborough. Weirdly enough, one of the reasons given for wanting to charge was to try to take out some of the commuters out of the car park and allow locals to use it. There is a time limit on how long you can stay in that car park, which prevents commuters using it. So then they are still having to park on the street. There's a whole host of issues with particular policy. I know it should be raised, Simon, at the next full council meeting. Councillor Mundy has proposed a motion, which I'll certainly be supporting. And I know Councillor Jays will be seconded, which is calling exactly what we want, is an urgent review.
I could say increase the charges in Queen Car Park last week. I got the sign up and it's now 24 hours.
They changed it, haven't they?
Oh, right, yeah. The sign
On Park Road, yeah, but not in the library. And it is having an effect. One of the businesses in Halfway, he runs 2 businesses there. He was thinking of opening a 3rd one. He's not going to do that anymore. There are other businesses. The cost of loss of business rates should a business fail, and we've heard last week the pub in Queenborough's closed. If we lose those business rates, none of that was factored in the discussions that took place before the decision was made. So I think there's plenty of new evidence to be gained. I've asked the parking officials to give me a year-to-date figure for the revenues for the car parks across Sheppey, which I've been promised for next week, which will be in advance of that meeting. And I'll share those with colleagues on the council when I get them. But there is no, I can't tell you why the decision was taken, Simon. I don't sit on that committee. I did try to suggest to the committee when it met that they were making a decision before any consultation had taken place. And that's exactly what happened. This consultation took place afterwards. The 4,000 people that registered their opposition to it, unfortunately, I don't believe were heard before that decision was taken. And that's a shame. But we had a chance to put that right with an urgent review, which is what Councillor Lundy's proposal will be asking for when we meet in a couple of weeks' time.
In terms of supporting that motion, as the chairman said, can't the councillors here, because they're all from these areas, vote to say here and put a motion board to say that they support it now? Because you said you can write a letter to a committee if all the local councils here.
so at the end of obviously the discussion, we can come to some sort of decision where we all vote. And it will be all of us. We can put a vote for everyone, not just obviously if it's going to a specific committee, we have to do a members vote afterwards, but we can do a public vote. So we can get everyone's vote on whether that's what you want us to do. And then obviously to go to a specific service committee, it'd have to be members only. And I'm more than happy to open it up to a vote for everyone and then member specific for whether it's we take it to the committee or even like one of the whether we write as the residents forum if there's a sort of an overwhelming decision, we write and support whatever. I think I've seen your motion briefly, but however we can. And this is the difference in this committee is we're giving it more control to the residents because that's what we need to happen. I've got Peter Martinson. Councillor Martinson.
I like most of the councillors, we fought hard against this. We looked at it totally inward thinking. It's not looking at the finger on straight bits and pieces. We've been under pressure for years and years to try and get the high streets going. That was a main sort of source of the energy to try and get the high streets to life. And the biggest threat to high streets is online buying. So to parking costs to it as well. You really got to know and got me really hard. So the, I said, oh, we consider fighting toilets, but I have to mention that we're not allowed to be predetermined. If we make a statement, predetermination, we're not allowed to vote. And that is a law.
Sorry, if I can, if I can get the
So
chief
you're-
exec in.
You're right.
Yes.
If it was a regulatory committee, like a planning committee,
Yeah.
that's fine. But for a motion, you can be very clear if you like. You are allowed to be. Equally, you can say, I will want to hear a debate before I vote. You can do that, but it's not a planning committee or like a regulatory.
That's it tonight. We're going to take my vote on the night.
No, your vote on the night is your vote on the night.
It's interesting, also spelling quickly, but over the arch where everyone's going, people are finding they can't get into Golden Avenue and Edward Road there. So people park outside the houses because everyone's drifting to the other side of the thing, but unable to find parking spaces. So it's creating a real problem. Very bad. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, councillor McDonald.
Yeah, I'd like to say that all the assets on Sheppey were paid for by the taxpayers at the time, obviously including myself and families, and the same in Queenborough. And they were taken over by Swale. They weren't bought by Swale. I was actually on the committee and I was outvoted for the car parking because I, with my commercial experience, I knew that it wasn't going to happen. You know, you're not going to get the income for the cost of actually doing it. Now, Swale's got a responsibility, having taken over the assets and maintaining them, unless they're passed on to the parishes, in which case it'll be the parish and town councils. So you've only got to look on your car park, which was in a appalling shape, and it was badly maintained, and they had to do something about it. They did so, but the charges came in, and if you're lucky, you'll see a couple of cars in there, unless it's people who do blue badges. So it isn't. I know the council were trying to raise money, but it was the people who voted against us, frankly, were the councillors of the island mostly, and Fairham and some of the mainland councillors. So we were outvoted because I, you know, it's so obvious that it wasn't going to be a financial advantage.
Thank you.
Can't possibly be.
Right, thank you, councillor McDonald. Councillor Nundy.
Yeah, so I am taking over for the next full council meeting. What I want to make absolutely clear right now is that the result of that motion, even if it gets voted in favour of, the parking charge will not be reversed straight away. It will have to go back to the Environmental Services and Climate Change Committee, because that's the committee that made that original decision. Full council ratifies it with the budget, but the actual decision was made by the Environmental Services. So just to be absolutely clear, I fully appreciate everything that everyone said, and thank you for coming tonight and reading that out. It was really helpful for people to understand the effect this is having on businesses and people just trying to go about their daily lives, especially when the cost of absolutely everything is going up and up and up. But it seems that people are getting less and less and less for the money that they pay. But I just wanted to make it completely clear that even if that motion is passed for full council, parking charges can't be reversed. Full council isn't able to do that. It has to go back to the service committee. And obviously when it does, sure myself and Mike, although we're not on that committee, we'll go along and speak on your behalf to try and get these parking charges reversed. So we can go back to how things were when it was much better for the island. And businesses weren't being as badly affected. I think if you look at Sheerness High Street. Now, I know Councillor Marchington touched on it earlier. Yeah, online shopping is that's the thing that's really key. High streets, but also there are still cafes on the high street. There are still restaurants and pubs, and the parking charges are still having a negative impact in Sheerness. So if it's happening there, then we know that it's going to have an issue in Greenwood. We know it's going to have an issue in our way. We know that it's going to be an issue in Oxford as well. But the only thing I can promise is I'm not going to stop fighting to get this charge.
Councillor Sheppey.
Yeah, the problem has, as Councillor White said, is push. It has literally spread Winwood totally apart. The Library car park from day one has been an absolute shambles and should never have gone through like it. There's things that swells over the land. KCC have now spray painted, I think 6 of the parking bays that they're now theirs. So their staff don't like to pay because that's their land. Because they've come forward and said, no, actually it is ours. That then makes the car park even smaller. A lot of that, that's at the moment, there's nobody's using it. The fee structure is completely wrong, even if we are having to pay for parking users. All of them commuters are now parking on the hill, which has made that extremely dangerous. The town council are now having to look at putting double yellow lines in, which has to happen to make the area safe, but then has a knock-on effect on people using the coal. So it's spread the problem from one end of Queenborough to the other end. It's affected businesses, we've lost residents, and now we're trying to push people into the remaining 2 smaller free car parks that Queenborough still has, and that isn't a thing for anybody to put parking over them. It really isn't. But it wasn't factored in. Because we still have 2 free car parks, we're just pushing people into there as much as we can to avoid the charges. The car parking meter at Library Car Park has already been vandalised and has been out of use pretty much since it was put in. The charge shouldn't be there in the first place, but this adds an extra barrier. The older people that don't have smartphones are now being told, well, you're going to get to it because there's a Ringo sign, it's still got a number display, so that's your problem. Most of the old residents that go to parcel connections for lunch or go for their support groups can't use smartphones, they just want to put their coins in and go. It's created so many barriers for our community, it is absolutely unreal. You would think it was just a small parking meter, but the effects have been absolutely massive. We've lost businesses, we've lost residents, it has to be looked at.
I think I can speak sort of from the chairs, that halfway, that car park was mainly used by school. And even the parents, even though they made the halfway car park free for the 2 hours of drop off and pick up, the parents won't use it still. There is spaces there at 3:10 when you never had a space there at 3:10 because they're terrified of getting a parking ticket, and they're parking all along the main road. And so you've got all the kids coming out of the gate and there's cars like parked and you can't get the bus through, you can't get anything there. And the businesses in halfway. I mean, I think we've all seen the Facebook posts from sort of some of the cafes and things in halfway. And this is exactly what a lot of us did say was going to happen. I've got a lady, sorry, I don't know. I can't remember. Jackie.
As Ashley said, it's always been a false economy.
Yeah.
It was never, ever gonna make any money. You've ripped the heart out of our town by these charges, and quite frankly, it needs to be reversed. You know, the parking on the hill is dangerous. I nearly have a head on myself. If I had a bigger car, I wouldn't be sitting here today. It's only the fact that I've got a small car and was able to pull in as the car came over the top. Someone actually said to me, I had kids in my car, and the commuters are parking there because they can't use that car park. So you've got to look at it. It's always been a false economy. Ship on shore isn't, you know, you've got no revenue from that, but that's on the outskirts of the town. These car parks are in the heart of our town, and you need to change this decision, and you need to do it quickly before we lose everything that we've got. I'd love to know how many times the parking meters are walking through Queenborough as well, because on Sunday there were 5 cars in Parkland car park, 3 were blue badges, and the other 2 had parking tickets. So are you generating your income from the fines rather than them actually paying their tickets?
Okay. No, they're obviously questions we'd have to bring up, but I don't have the answer to them questions, but no, but I mean, We have a suggestion, obviously, from yourself quickly to say, sort of that we refer this through this committee back to the service committee. I know we've got a motion going through full council. Is there any other?
Also, like shooting short car, use that much, but the other ways, that's why we get a lot of residents in old use homes and that, So with a single bank, I've shut down to reopen. I do use a single bank myself personally. A lot of other candidates. And then it's always tidy up there, no mess. Garbage and I get people out every day, every week. Nothing was done up there. Barriers wasn't moved. Service wasn't done. Nothing was done. It was going to happen. They're still charging £15 a night. Nothing's been done. And it's literally there. The fishermen aren't coming still. They don't pay £15 a night. I fish myself. I won't go to it. The bait shops are doing now on the bait. Local carpet that are now. I think it's disgraceful.
And it's mostly a lot of the people that work fishing bank seems to be going like there.
They're on the side of the streets. But little Aldi, there's a caravan man on there. You just push them onto the streets.
Right.
Tourism, you just push away. You see all the foreign trucks come in, hop over for a night or 2 nights on their travels, not getting none of it.
Okay, yeah, that's obviously that was a separate decision from car park, but it's car parking charges, but it was, it was,
It's just a question, actually about the single bank. I'd just like to know, maybe next meeting, what has been the revenue from the single bank? And how many fines have been,
okay,
I don't know if anybody knows.
Yep. Okay, yep, we will try to answer and get an answer for that question for the next meeting for yourselves. Yep.
Considering the public feeling on this, can the Swale Borough councillors who are at tonight's meeting, please raise your hand if you are going to vote in favour of this motion when it comes to full by council motion, please.
I will take that to the Swale Borough councillors. That is, I can't force them to show how they will vote on the evening because that is not how. But if they would like to raise their hand and show they will be in favour of it, they can do. I am not going to force.
If they put stuff in, if they can't make it, then.
Well, full council will, you don't put subs in at full council, so
No, but if it goes back to committee, because that's.
Yeah.
I'll declare an interest and I won't vote. Because obviously I'm a member of the committee.
This is what I mean. It's completely up to councillors if you wanted to show your support here tonight, but.
To show how you would.
Yeah, but.
Not to vote in this meeting, to show what you support.
Councillor MacDonald has raised a point that because he's a member of the committee that makes the decision, he would rather not raise his hand.
Yeah.
I think that is.
Yeah.
So anyone that's a member of the committee, if they don't put their hand up, that is not that is them keeping their position.
Yeah.
Which is different.
Yeah, so.
We're going to vote on the motion to take it tonight, anyway.
So we've obviously got a plan on the table to vote, to take it, send it back to committee from here anyway, so. Going.
It's on the chairman's vote, we know we've had this.
Yeah.
The sign you put up, like the parking fees.
Yeah.
Someone keeps taking them down, and I know you guys can put them up, you can take them down. There's an actual black camper van that's been left there. They come down at weekends, so this weekend they weren't there, because I pass it every day, and it's just sitting there, and it's just like, and I know it's camper vans and parking in the car spaces. And you've got someone renovating one, car, vans always back, doors open, I've come down, and the man near missing is an accident. Do you actually go down there and check them, the payment part of this? There's a few in there that have been there for months, and it's not going to change, because they are quite persistent, they think they can stay there.
So we do, and we do take people to court as well. We've had quite a lot of success taking people to court. The law is not helpful, and we have to demonstrate that something hasn't moved at all. And often if somebody just moves the space, then it's so, but we do take action. Just on, a technical matter, I'm going to need to seek advice, but if you vote to send a motion to council that's the same as councillor Lundy's, to the committee, what I'm not sure, and I'm not saying it won't, but I'm not sure, I'd have to seek advice. If full council decides not to proceed with your motion, what I don't know is if that means that is full council that has spoken, and therefore the motion from this committee in effect has been debated at full council and full council has made the decision. I'm not saying that's the case, but it is something that I will have to check with the lawyers, because I don't know if it's exactly the same. We have a rule that something can't be debated again if it's been debated and falls. And I'm not saying it will fall, but if it's debated and falls, I'm not sure we can take it, in effect, circumventing the full council. My feeling is we can't, but I will check.
Could we,
Not the councillors, just from the residents.
could we then,
Residents demand that this is.
I was going to suggest, if we take it as the chair writes in support of the motion.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say don't do it, because if you can do it, then that's great.
Yeah.
And I genuinely don't know the answer.
No.
So do it, but just put in the minutes, we will, as officers, write to you in the event that it can't, but it might be able to.
Yeah.
If it helps, Chair, I think, if the group here tonight collectively, including all the residents, if you allow it, were to be able to send a message by you as chairman.
Yeah.
To full council.
Yeah.
So that full council is aware that the Sheppey area, the councillors and residents forum here tonight has a particular view,
Yeah.
whatever that view turns out to be.
That's completely.
Then I think that will get over the issue that Lewis raises quite rightly, but does send a very clear message back to full council of the feelings of the people in this room. And I think that might be a way around it if the proposers happy.
Would that be, would you accept that? Because I don't want to.
It's getting our voice heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quite to talk to the council if you get shut down. We had 4,000 signatures on the petition and that is just used as way to make way.
So because I don't want to take away and so we don't get the motion through, would you be happy that
I don't see why the two are interlinked. You've asked the Sheppey residents what they think. This is Tom and the council's doing anything, we're doing nothing, and Sheppey residents.
But is
The council speak on our behalf.
Yeah, so in
Sorry,
order, Mr. Fowle, the thing
sorry,
is,
if you can,
in order for something to be agreed to go to a committee, that has to be a councillors only vote.
Yeah.
So it's the councillors only vote to say, and let's say the councillors say yes. That's the bit that when it goes to full council, that could get kind of superseded and you've already in, so council, as councillor Whiting says, if we can say to full council or councillor councillor Moore, if councillor Moore can say to full council, or there can be something that is presented and we can make sure that it's written out and put on every chair to say something were the room to vote, to say, we believe, we support this is the impact, then we're very happy. And then members will be very well aware when they put their hand up or not, whichever way they put their hand up, they will be aware to be able to say. Now, it is also possible that members will just vote to send the whole lot just straight to committee without debate. There is provision in the constitution for the councillors to do that. The issue is, whilst it's a hugely emotive issue for residents, there are constitutional legal rules that we've got to go through, and that I just didn't want something to happen that didn't get you the outcome you were hoping.
I don't want to say, I think we've really made an improvement with this committee is in getting residents involved. I don't want to then have to come back and say, we can't. So I'd rather do it as, if you're happy, we will write a letter.
I'll take your advice, but, you know, you're prolonging things that businesses won't, survive. They won't survive, but, you know, you will.
It's gonna be at the next full council, so, and then which will, I'll be with you in 1 minute, will then be, it's a week on Tuesday.
You went to committee last time, and because obviously we had the year before we went through it.
Yeah.
And most people didn't want it the second time round. Was there any backroom bar, demonstrates that it had to be done to appease other wards in Swale?
So the reason that the council put this forward, we have a parking policy, and the parking policy says that we can, Councillor Harrison, says that we can charge for parking. That was widely consulted on. The council provides parking for road safety, and everyone here tonight has kind of borne that out, saying that people are parking on the road. In order to be able to maintain the car parks, there is a cost to that, and that cost currently is being borne by the rest of the council. So the members, what we put forward to members was that we charge for those car parking.
About the other 26 that are free as well.
So let me.
Can I just,
We didn't just pick ones on Sheppey. There was one in Faversham and there was one in Sittingbourne as well. So they were, but most of the ones in Faversham and Sittingbourne are already charged for. So that's why it was a report that was written by an officer. So it was an officer, the way our system works, the officers write the report. It went to the committee. There is, as far as I'm aware, it's an officer report. I'm certain that the officer didn't engage in any bargaining because we don't do that. We write straight reports. And then a decision is made by politicians. So that's the process that we went through.
But when you're comparing a Faversham car park that has got a town centre, that has got shops, has got restaurants and cafes, and you're comparing it to Park Road in Greenbrook, that's got one pub and one tea room. I expect to pay when I go to the town centre or to Canterbury or to Rochester. I wouldn't expect to pay when I go to a small town that's got nothing.
So I think when we've had the consultations to put parking charges up every year, as we have done for the past, I don't know how many years, what has happened is voluntary groups have said, why are we paying to park in Faversham? People that go for swimming lessons saying, why do we pay to park? Visitors in Sittingbourne, like businesses in Sittingbourne saying, it's killing our business paying to park. Paying to park is a very emotive issue. And, you know, I'm not passing comment on whether that's right or wrong. What I'm saying is the purpose for us charging is because we provide car parks for road safety purposes. Those car parks have a cost to run. The parking policy enables us to charge for them. We have therefore charged for them. And that was the decision was then taken by a committee of the council.
So can the politicians here say that there was no market trading with other wards to say, introduce parking and we'll let your budget go through?
No, not personally. I wouldn't. I've no.
Any other lips or things or briefs? No.
Right. Sorry, I've got two people who had their hand up, and then I'm going to have to take a decision on what we're going to do.
Well, the reason we come here today is that you can speak here, public.
Yeah.
Go to the main council. You're not allowed to sit in that balcony, and you can't say nothing. I think you can't say nothing.
No.
You come here to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what we want you to be able to talk to us.
Can we get the information for next meeting to find out how much money has been profited by the private companies who are enforcing these charges since they started? Can we get that information?
So can we get what the council has taken in?
Sorry, what I can do
Because Ringo's not going to be doing it for free. How much
Right.
money are they making?
Well, hold on, just got one meeting.
So actually Ringo doesn't charge us. And if you go and park in a lot of places with Ringo, you pay a 20p or 25p convenience charge. Swale doesn't do that.
Oh.
So if you pay by Ringo, you don't pay that in Swale. The car park attendants, as my mum would still call them, traffic wardens, but the civil enforcement officers, they work on our behalf.
Yeah.
So we can bring information about how much money has been taken in income and in fines, but those fines don't go to those private companies. So just to clarify, I can bring you that information.
Right. Would that be for the area though? Would that be or would that be widespread? Just would it be?
I will look to see how far, I don't know. I should do, but I'll see how far we can drill down. I don't know the answer, but we'll get it as drilled down as possible.
I've spoken to Martin himself before about that.
I'll get there. Oh, good. Yeah.
I can't.
I didn't want to get myself into trouble, so we could do it and then we could.
Right,
Yes.
briefly,
Ringo doesn't charge us unless you ask for the reminder.
Yes, that's right.
And then they charge, but that's not us.
No, that's not us.
Martin, as Thomas just said, and drill down to the individual figures, but we don't pay that power anymore.
No.
To look at these car parks, we just pay them a set amount of hours. So
Yeah.
I don't know the exact amount, £500 a month.
Yeah.
500 hours a month, but they do the whole, it's not we've not added.
Oh, right, okay, so you just added the car parks and then
We've not added the cost of it.
right,
That's just reduced,
Thank
reduced. hours.
last week, councillor Braun there and then sorry.
Our contract's exactly the same, we are not posting any extra hours of.
No, we're not.
So there is no extra cost on that part, so there will be no, as we call it, extra problem.
Right, so can I take then, if Simon, you was happy, because you proposed it first of all, look, we write a letter from the chair of the residents and councillor and residents forum to full council in support of the motion for the car park. Can I take a show of hands?
It might be stronger.
Yep.
If you say that you support the motion.
Yep.
And you're very concerned about the negative impact it's having on local businesses.
Yes, if I can get
Something
some
like that.
help with wording.
But it's that.
The proposal is then for the public first. Right, so we've got, not have the councillors or anything,
If it is.
do we have can I have a councillor proposer and seconder?
Yes, I'll have to propose. Can we also add into that proposal about the effects on the roads so that road safety is added to that? If that's what our policy is saying for car parks.
That's why we have
to add on this first effect on our policy obligation.
Brilliant. And seconder, then we've got councillor Whiting. And can I have a show of hands, if that's okay? All those in favour?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, yes, that looks like it is the majority, so we will take that and I will bring that to support the motion and everything else at full council.
Do we now need to do?
Do we don't need to do a council? I don't think we need to do a council vote because it's just a letter.
It's a boring vote. But thank you very much. I hope that's sort of sorted. Right, just briefly then, try and fly through everything else as we're so the Swale Community Governance Review, the second stage is now complete. It's been closed at the 2nd of June and the recommendations will be made to full council on the 22nd of July, is that the correct date? So 23rd?
Yeah, 22nd, 23rd of June, 22nd of June, yeah, it's July, yeah. 22nd of July.
7th of July.
Goes to policy and resources from the bus.
I'm going to say that, it's open policy and policies in a couple of weeks' time.
And then it will go.
There, it'll go to formal recommendation to the full council.
Brilliant. Okay, obviously local government reorganisation, the consultation on that closed in March and we are awaiting the government's decision due early summer, July time, is it?
We've been told
So,
by July the 16th, but who knows?
so we will update everyone on that as and when we hear. The Swale Bus Forum update, the minutes are in the agenda pack. Councillor Harrison?
Yeah, I just have my hands up on 2011.
Sorry.
Not many of them, I recall being asked correctly, replied on the arrangements for elections in the future, but just to let them know that the council has put forward that if this all goes through this local government review, there will be shadow elections in 27, and that town and parish councils would be aligned with the new authority. So the first term of the town and parish councils would actually be 5 years as opposed to the normal 4 to get it in sync. And thereafter, you would do a 4-year term. I know like lots of town and parish councils don't actually have elections, but I think that they should be aware of this, that if you're putting yourself forward in 27,
Yeah, we've agreed to that.
Apologies, Councillor Harrison, for missing you there on that one. As you can see, the minutes for the bus forum, Councillor Worcester, did you have anything to add on that quickly?
Really quickly, there's 2 major points that came out of that meeting. We were able to, carry the remit of the, partnership story now, that we will be thinking about our own 6 contributions, which have been sorely missing, from contributions from the council, which will mean that actively, bus companies, can that forum, save local council, that really important that we take that viewpoint forward. The other thing that came out of it was obviously the BSIP funding. NCC seems to have some money thinking about the moment for bus shelters. The island has been, I think have been looking for the island to see if we can solve some of those bus shelter issues that we've had recently via that situation. But obviously, what comes from this forum every single time is that we are pushing very hard for meaningful contributions to bus transport. KCC removed 25% of our network when they decided to remove bus services from Kent. That was one of the highest areas that lost bus transport all over Kent. Completely unacceptable in my opinion. And we are fighting not just to have a lot of bus that lasts for 6 weeks to support tourism, which is great, but residents want bus transport to support employment. They want it to support education, and they want it to be long-term investment by the powers that be. So we are pushing for that along with the other councillors that sit on that bus form. Have to take anything forward if you want to put anything in writing. I'll take that forward to the next meeting. Thank you.
Brilliant. Councillor Whiting, did you have a quick question?
A couple of points in the minutes, really. First of all, I mean, it's great we're asking for more bus stops and all the improvements, but of course, if there are no buses, it's pointless having a bus stop. But ACC did have a wad of money, half of which was about 25 million, split in round numbers, half of which was for capital stuff like bus stops and drop curbs and all that. As I say, if there are no buses, it's pointless to spending that money on that. And it would be nice if KCC could buy some of that money across into the revenue so they can spend it on supporting services and subsidising the bus services rather than just trying to make our bus stops look very good. If that's possible, and we've got our county council here as well. And there's also under 4.7 on page 12. I've got the council was to express concern that joint transport would be coming to an end, but I just wondered if you could expand on that and where that came from. So I wasn't aware of that.
Absolutely. So, one of our members that attends, the joint transport board has said that they've had a couple of meetings cancelled. And obviously, Maidstone have had their joint transport board, held long. What we'd like to see is a continuation of that, board and to make sure that actually continues. From the island's point of view, there is actually a point that the joint transport board made for our children. In Bell Road, it was actually pointed out that lots of our children catch those school buses over to City Hall, have a drop-off point in Bell Road. That particular issue was held at the joint transport board and is a forum where people actually get to put those considerations to not only to our councillors, but KCC councillors. There are very few and far between those forums for people to get to talk in that arena. And obviously, we'd like to see that continue. So it was appropriate to mention that because obviously some of those bus transport transport situations may go forward to the joint transport board. Honestly, if it doesn't exist, then they won't go forward to it. So quite obviously, you want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what the, I mean, I'm aware of one meeting being cancelled because the county council didn't say that. I'm aware of more than one meeting being cancelled. But I hadn't heard of any intention to shut them down.
It's something that's being looked at to make sure it's the right way of doing it, and Maidstones has been ended and there was concern across Kent, but we have been advised at the moment that they're still continuing.
Okay.
Very tiny, can we please ask the bus companies to update their timetables, within the bus shelters? Because they're not the current ones. I missed the bus myself last week, when I thought, yes, because it was the wrong timetable. I did cancel, so just hope that everyone is aware. If you are in a parish council, I think most of them now have got highway improvement plans in place. If you've got something that you think is appropriate to change the way that the layout of the roads or whatever is happening, they'll put it online, put in yellow boxes or anything. Speak to your parish councillors because they can put it in their highway improvement plan and then take that to the board. So you do have a way of funneling your ideas in. That's how that one works.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Anyone else on that? No. Okay, agenda item 13 is you said we did matters arising. So pretty much sort of going through them. Obviously, there is what you've asked for and what we did, sort of going through the overnight parking, Barton's Point, the crisis resilience fund. I know there's a quick update from Councillor Braun on the areas of special control and of advertisement.
So as Vice Chair of the Transportation Policy Working Group, we met on Tuesday and we have voted that to forward to policy resources and it'll be spoken about on the
Brilliant, thank you very much. Obviously, there's more update on Sheerness conservation area reviews, the heritage list, the Swale local cycling walking infrastructure plan update, and Swale community lottery. The health facilities, we're hopefully going to get, it says there, a representative to attend a future meeting, and the same with Sports England. Is there any questions regarding any of them? That's all the stuff.
Just quickly, Chair, obviously, sometimes we feel that we have at least 10 these meetings. It'd be really nice to see them coming along potentially. It's not like, from my point of view, my residents would be particularly interested in. We have whole social motorbike riding, electric scooter riding, things of that nature. Other areas might have other things, so it would be really nice to have Inspector Basingdale potentially attend and have the update. They did hold a really great, successful Swale policing day, to be held in Sitting Hall. It was excellent. And it may be something that we could possibly suggest that they want to vary between Sitting Hall and Sheppey. So 1 year Sitting Hall, 1 year Sheppey. And it was really lovely to see all of those police cadets, but of course the police cadets for this area meeting Sitting Hall as well, which does mean that sometimes we could have children here that would be excellent police cadets, but just cannot possibly make it over. So it would be interesting to discuss those points of tension.
Just to respond to the point about getting them to come along to these meetings, Councillor Worcester. I know Inspector Bassendale is very happy to come along. She came along to, I think, all of the February round of meetings, and I'll probably invite her to either the October or the February round again, you know, depending on her availability. So it's something we try to do regularly.
I think that'd be brilliant, and considering that after the Lansdowne operation, when I do focus on this area in terms of policing, it'd be really interesting to hear what sort of responses they can give around this area and how they managed to support this area this year, if that makes sense.
Brilliant, thank you, Councillor Whiting.
Just a quick one, if we can. I wonder whether it's worth inviting Southern Water to come and tell us what their plans are. We had, I know the council is looking to get Southern Water to come and talk to the Environment Committee, and that's a good thing to do. But we had recently a situation where they were putting up a water station in Tesco's. Thankfully, it wasn't necessary because they managed to top up a reservoir at Checkers adequately enough not to need it. But it's clear that with more development going on, water supply to the island is a long-term issue that needs addressing. I know other members here have spoken about it at full council as well. But rather, as well as getting them to go to a council meeting, which would be really good, I think it would be good to have them to come here and talk to the residents of Sheppey about what their plans are for ensuring that we have adequate water supply for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Thank you.
Could we put that as a?
I can
try to.
Yeah, we have tried getting them to come along to other areas unsuccessfully so far, but we can keep trying.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you, and then Councillor Worcester.
Just to keep it at the forefront, the problem of the Neptune steps along the promenade at Sheerness. I mention it every single meeting I ever go to. I made a petition several years ago with 800 names, sent it into Swell Borough Council. Sheerness Town Council, with Peter McDonald's help, did draw up some really good plans to solve the problem. It really needs to get solved. It should have come in the Sheerness revival, in my humble opinion.
Okay, that's something we can, we'll obviously take away and look into that. Councillor Worcester.
Last one, because my friends, everybody in House Harrison, hungry, on with it for her. Every year she brings to this forum the idea that we need to be asking potentially healthcare to be attending these forums as well. And I'd particularly like to beat the drum for women's health. We have no maternity care on this island. We have very limited breastfeeding support. We have very limited gynecology work that happens on the island. And I think it's time that we address that. I know lots of help is important to everybody, but my particular interest is making sure that those people with very little voices in this arena actually have a voice. And I think judging by tonight's excellent chairing and with this committee, this could be the time that we actually vote to get the health into this meeting. Thank you.
We will try and do our best. All I can say. Local issues to be raised. I think we've sort of covered a few of them. Is there any others anyone wanted to bring up? No. So we haven't referred any matters to service committees, but we are going to be writing the letter for the motion at full council. The next Council Residents Forum will take place on the 10th of November. We will provide details of the venue close to the time when we know where it is. And thank you very much, everyone. And I close this meeting at 21:23.
Well done.
Thank you. Yeah. I was conscious of your time. I talked about the things they wanted to do. Yeah.